Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Schock, for holding this meeting. I was notified. Did they call votes or just notify us about votes?
I think we have till about 11:15 or so until votes.
Mine won't take that long, but thank you both, and thank you all for this very informative meeting. The benefit of going third or the detriment is that most of the questions you're interested in get asked before you get down here. So it's been very informative. I guess one of the things I'd talk about when we're talking about increasing this was one of the things I wanted to ask if it was enough money. And in a time when we know a couple of weeks ago we had tea parties and everyone is talking about less government spending, us included, that we hope you at your organizations, when you're putting out the newsletters and the emails, that you'll back up when we know that we're going to invest in these programs that are going to solve problems and fix people. That you'll be our cheerleaders, not just us going back to the town halls, but that you'll go out to your organizations and your members and tell the same thing. We're investing in good products, good organizations. One of you, and I can't remember which one, was talking about the technology readiness gap. I don't know if that was Mr. Loper or Ms. Blakey. Would you elaborate on that for me, please? Clear that up for me if you can, and how you might suggest that we close that gap between 4 and 6. Help me understand that if you don't mind.
Well, I think it really does come down to the fact that at that point you're looking at the stages where you've gone from the concepts, you have done a certain amount of the work, but getting through from a prototype to the point that you really have manufacturability and you're at that low rate production level. That's very critical, and the military is very exacting about that, and there are very specific requirements, as there are for NASA, et cetera. So that area right there is where you often find that things bog down, and at that point you may find that the program simply stops. This is why we would like very much to see Phase 2 have a component, if you will, that looks at that very specifically and looks to solve the gap problem.
Thank you very much. One of the things I always like to do is give somebody a chance to dispute something they heard from the other panelists. Not that I want to cause a fight, but if anyone heard something from another panelist, Mr. Biddle, I know you raised your eyebrows a couple times when some of the other ideas. If anybody would like to dispute something they heard from somebody else, I'd love to give you that opportunity.
Yeah, I love these press releases that talk about these billionaires who own these small companies and are trying to hide behind the SBIR program. My venture fund is owned by the Virginia Cops, the Teachers Pension Plan, the University of Virginia's Endowment, the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, Episcopal ministers. I mean, it's American money, belongs to American individuals. The success here pays for scholarships at Georgetown and Carnegie Mellon and Notre Dame. So there are no billionaires with these companies. And the fact that I've done a good job and I've created 10,000 jobs shouldn't mean that my 4 guys in a garage can't collaborate with the government on a piece of science that could make a big difference. So this aggregation is just silly. I mean, the last thing I want to do is run a company. I'm on 10 boards. I can't run these companies. And what I tell my entrepreneurs is this ownership thing's a myth. If I own 5% of your company and you can't make payroll, it's my company. If I own 60% of your company and you're doing great, it's your company. So we provide coaching and finance, but each of these companies is separate. Each of our funds is a limited purpose entity. It lives for 10 years and it goes away. Our limited partners give us cash. They expect to get cash back. And their collaboration or collusion between these companies is just ridiculous. So typically, I mean, most great companies, they take capital because the entrepreneur wants capital because he wants 10% of $1 billion instead of 100% of $1 million. So each of us will typically own 10, 15, 20% of a company, but it's so easy to get to 51%. And these are consenting adult transactions. These guys want our money, and they want to exchange stock for the potential to be the next Google or Cisco. So being venture-backed is a badge of honor. It shouldn't disqualify you from being able to work on national security issues. So I'm here for the NVCA, but I'm really here for the Department of Defense. The military needs to engage our inventors. And if I was designing a program from scratch to allow that to happen, I would want current year unallocated spending authority. I would want small business procurement rules. I would want a legal authority for my scientists to collaborate with government scientists. I'd go on the road. The Navy did this with me and 8 other VCs, got us clearances, told us what their problems were, asked us to keep our eyes open and look for people who had stuff that with a twist or a little money could solve a big problem. So that's what we should be doing.
If I can just echo that sentiment as it relates to affiliation rules, while we are backed by 5 major investors, venture capitalists, the reality is they are small players in the company with regards to the equity that they individually have. These funds are pretty large funds. They invest in numerous companies. Each funds have typically an average of 10 to 15, probably 20 investments in some cases. So they manage or they invest in a large number of companies. They do not run my companies. I run my company, and the buck stops with me. That being said, they play an important and integral role in our ability to commercialize these technologies. Without the capital, we couldn't do it. I think it's ridiculous that this affiliation notion exists. Half the time I don't even know the investments these other funds make, nor do we have affiliations with them. So I think we need to make sure that there are clarification rules around that. We are a unique entity. Yes, we're backed by 5 different funds that have probably an aggregate over 100 investments. We don't interact with those companies, so I think we need to really make sure we pay attention to that. And then getting rid of this eligibility of VC-backed companies, I think we really, really have to do that. That is prohibiting competition within these programs, and I would argue devaluing these dollars that get deployed. And this is the criticism that you often get with government dollars being poorly deployed, and I think we need to add more competition to the system.
Mr. Chairman, I know my time's expired. If I could close by saying I think we definitely need to spell out the difference in what you're saying between, with all the reputation and things going the last 5 months on Wall Street, and the separation between venture capitalists and the companies on Wall Street, the bailouts. That I think it's a very important point to bring up, and that people understand that the venture capitalists aren't part of that these closures. Thank you. I'd yield back.